Let's talk about someone who's been mostly absent from the whole Epstein conversation, at least publicly, and that's Melania Trump. Now, let's be clear. There's no evidence that Melania Trump had any direct involvement with Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. She doesn't appear in the flight logs. She's not named in any lawsuits or investigations, and no accuser has ever mentioned her by name. But that doesn't mean that her name should be left out of this story, because I think it's a big part of it. And when it comes to proximity, she was certainly close enough to everybody involved to know an awful lot about what went on and to be involved in an awful lot of it. Have you noticed how desperate Donald Trump's been in the last week to bury anything and everything to do with the Epstein files? He doesn't want anybody looking at it. He's ranting and raving like a lunatic. I mean, he's been out there calling his own supporters weaklings and dupes of the Democrats. He started to scream and yell that the whole Epstein case was nothing but a fabrication of the deep state. It was Obama and Comey and Biden. We all know there was a very real sex trafficking scandal with hundreds of victims and even a suspicious suicide. And it involves Donald Trump, the President of the United States, and apparently his wife as well. There are reports out there that it was Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, who introduced Melania to Donald Trump. There are other reports out there that the first time they slept together was actually on Epstein's plane, called the Lolita. So it's time we started asking some really tough questions. Bottom line, is Trump's outrage and anger and denial a result of him trying to bury the story, cover up, and protect Melania? I'm starting to think so. We know that Melania met Trump in 1998, at a time when Trump and Epstein were publicly good friends and spending a lot of time together. They were part of the same social scene, one that revolved around fashion models, elite parties, and private clubs like those at Mar-a-Lago, where both men were known to spend a lot of time together. And Melania? Well, she was a model herself, moving through the same image-obsessed world that Epstein and Maxwell used as their hunting ground for their sex trafficking scandal. Throughout the 2000s, they were frequently spotted at Mar-a-Lago. Epstein was seen with Trump at all kinds of social events. Melania, Epstein, and Maxwell were all part of the same high-gloss, transactional Manhattan society. And it was very likely that they were often in the same room, more than once. Now, let's be honest. Being in the same room isn't a crime. But here's where it gets interesting and troubling. Melania Trump has often spoken out about values, dignity, and protecting children. Her Be Best initiative as First Lady was supposedly about online bullying and youth protection. Yet, she has never once spoken publicly about Jeffrey Epstein. Not once. Not when he was arrested, not when the abuse was exposed, not even when her own husband wished Ghislaine Maxwell well during her trial, and not recently while all of this has been exploding in the media. This isn't just a silence. It's a calculated absence. When you're the First Lady of the United States, and you're part of that world, and you built your platform on protecting the vulnerable, your silence becomes complicity. So no, Melania Trump isn't accused or even suspected of any crime, but she has a place in this story. A story that needs to be told, because when the people around you abuse power, exploit the weak, and manipulate truth, staying silent is not a choice. Melania Trump may not be guilty of anything, but she's not innocent either. Not when she stood by, watched as it all unfolded, and has chosen to stay silent. You know, those of us in the resistance, those who oppose Trump, who are fighting actively to stop his authoritarian, dictatorial regime, well, we've got a handicap that Trump is not burdened with, and that's decency, common decency. We try to keep family members, children, unrelated victims out of the story and out of the picture. Well, that's never been a problem for Trump. He will drag your wife, your girlfriend, your parents, your kids, anybody you want to into the picture, or it helps him. He doesn't give a damn. But we've always tried to not involve people who may be innocent bystanders. And you know what? To a lot of people, they've given a lot of credit and a lot of grace to Melania Trump because an awful lot of people think of her as a victim. An awful lot of people think of her as a victim, someone who's been duped by Trump and she's just caught up in his web. But, that's just not the case. Let's call a blue truck a blue truck. Melania Trump is, or at least was, started out as a sugar baby, and Donald Trump was her sugar daddy. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Attractive young women hooking up with and spending time with successful older men is an old story that goes on all the time. As a matter of fact, in my own life, when I had an awful lot of assets, I was dating somebody who was 30 years younger than me. So it's not unheard of. Now, that all said and done, you can't ignore that as a reality. Melania Trump is a beautiful young woman who hooked up with a very wealthy, successful older man, Donald Trump. And that's what it is. And we've got to stop protecting her as if she's some kind of a saint or a sacred figure who shouldn't be touched. She's implicit in this. She has supported Trump, helped Trump, and continues to help him with cover-up and refusing to tell the truth. America has to hold not just Donald Trump accountable, but also his wife, Melania. This Trump-Epstein scandal is not going away. It's not going anywhere. It is arguably the biggest scandal in the history of American politics, and it is devouring the Trump administration. Trump is panicked. He doesn't know what to do anymore. And the mainstream media is not pursuing the story aggressively enough. America deserves to know what's gone on and who is protecting predators, whether they are Democrats or Republicans or Donald Trump, or doesn't matter who. It has to be examined. And until all the files are released by the Trump admin, which they could do like that tomorrow and release everything, and until a complete investigation is done, the story is not going to be over. And that investigation, it means getting testimony, recorded sworn testimony by people like Melania Trump to tell us what she knows and what she doesn't know, and what connection Jeffrey Epstein had with her husband, and what connection she had with Ghislaine Maxwell. There's so much behind the scenes that we're not aware of. But the time has come, and that story's going to come out. It's up to you to make sure it stays there. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate your support. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned. We've got a lot more to talk about.